Hey everybody. Hey everybody, it's Jillian. Yeah, you know, I'm writing now part of my book, a chapter about Catholics and Christians, or no, the Catholics and the Freemasons and the Georgia Guidestones. That's going to be one of my chapters. And trying to introduce a religion like Christianity or Catholicism or the Freemasons is like it's like asking, 7 billion people their whole take on Jesus Christ. And relative to their biochemical belief systems, you're going to get 7 billion different answers. And so who wants to do that, right? I mean, we already know what it's like to ask 7 billion people their take on Jesus Christ and the Pope and Freemasons, because you see all the different offshoots of the religions. Oh yeah, I basically wrote on my Facebook, I oversimplified. The reason why I oversimplified, because I'm taking all of the interpretation out of the belief systems. Like, I understand beliefs. I mean, look, they thrust out Greta Thunberg, whatever her name, Turnberg. They thrust out Anna Nicole Smith out there. They thrust out Trump, Biden. They thrust out so many people in the media, making them famous, right? There's people like Joel Osteen or all these different religious pundits that have made a name for themselves with their take on what's going on in society, their take on what's going on in the world, their interpretation of just life itself. I mean, many of you have an interpretation on what life is. And the only difference between you and Jesus, or you and the Pope, or you and Joel Osteen, is the fact that you don't have a bunch of money behind you to thrust you out there to make your word even more known to the world. And so, I don't study too much religion. I've never really got into the whole religious studies stuff. But humanity, you take humanity from today, okay? And you put a human today back in the first century. Okay, it's going to be a little bit different. It'll be no different than a person going into a third world country that doesn't really have running water and a heater and refrigeration. And so they're going to find a way to survive preserving, storing, defending their camp from invaders and predators. But that's the difference we do today. I mean, I'm here in my house. I have my own personal firepower. I mean, I have storage. Yes, I do have running water and indoor plumbing. But that's really the extent of the difference. Now, I've lived in places, well, no, I don't really think I live. I've stayed in places where I didn't have as many amenities. Okay? So it's really no different. And it's just, and then you have the language to communicate. The reason why people don't really understand other people out there, that are different to them is because they don't have the same language that they're communicating with. Or, right, they're different, they work from different belief systems. So, back to my original point, if you take a person from today and put him back 100 years ago, it would still be the same dynamic, because humans we're still imbalanced back then, living a lifespan, and they're imbalanced today, idolizing people, worshiping people, having their own interpretation on what life is, what the meaning of this, and this is. I mean, when you look, anytime someone reads a book, whatever it is, you can interpret any book as whatever you want, whatever seems to be fitting your own biases, whatever it is. And so then I'm looking back at oh my God, it just didn't really dawn on me about the Christians and the Pope. And the popes became a pope after the emperors martyrized Jesus. So Jesus was someone that, he was Jewish, and he's Jewish, and then he, in the land of Nazareth, there's now Israel, he would go make a pilgrimage, to the Holy Land, to the Holy Temple or the Temple on the Mount or something, right? And that those areas were controlled by the Romans because Roman Empire was huge. Business was conducted in the holy spaces like the temples. And so Jesus didn't like that. He was critical of his government, critical of the Roman Empire. He had a bunch of disciples or people that really followed him and liked what he had to say. So he was, someone that had a different voice at the time. And so that is very dangerous in a totalitarian government, right? The Roman Empire, they were like, you don't want to mess with the Romans, man. They were doing those medieval stuff where they were putting people in torture chambers. You don't want to mess with the Romans way back in the first century. I wouldn't want to. So then they put him on the cross. They basically made him a martyr. And so the 12 apostles, which I understand, just like, like right now with the whole jelly juice, I'm going to liken it back to jelly juice. People understand my protocols, like taking Emily and John and Caroline and Christina and Bridget and like 12 of you guys, right? And you're all going to be now a saint. That's kind of how I look at it. Or like I said in one of my posts about Miley Cyrus, it's like take someone like Miley Cyrus who became so famous and her first 10 fans became like saints, became embedded into the fabric of society, and everyone worships the 10 Miley Cyrus first fans. I mean, that's kind of how I look at anyone that idolizes a person. Because look, I mean, yeah, we can look at the whole aliens. I mean, am I going to bring aliens into my book? God. No, because I have no proof of them. I see stuff like on TV, right? I have never physically seen an alien myself. Are really aliens that different, or are they just a person with a few different strands of DNA that might be from another dimension that may give them more gifts? But then, hey, if an alien is able to cohabitate on this land, then they have more human DNA and are able to adapt. So if aliens do exist, they're out there, they may have given man some kind of, clue on how to evolve pretty fast with advanced technology and other stuff. But whatever, it was pretty short-lived, because if I do see an alien, I wouldn't even know it. So I'm not even really going to bring the alien agenda into my book, because that would just open up a whole set of, whatever. And if that ever comes up as the actual fact that aliens were the ones that spoke to Jesus, who then was able to speak in a way that's more advanced than the current thought process, then I'll write one more book I don't even want to write one more book. I'll be like, okay, great. So aliens are the one that influenced man to then say certain things. And then one man was able to have that information to impart upon the people out there. Okay. I mean, the thing with indefinite life and jelly juice, you can say, oh yeah, I mean, I don't want anyone idolize me. And that was one of the issues when I first started the jelly juice. One of my close, I guess, people was afraid that I was going to turn into some kind of this thing to worship. And no, she was afraid of that. Like, she had to separate herself because she was into the Yah crowd. And she was like, you're turning into some kind of like idol just to a lot of people. And I'm like, yeah, whoa, that's true. And I was seeing that because what I was saying was so different. Indefinite life, who says that, right? And so that's why I'm like, okay, over time, I'm like, I don't want to be anyone's doctor. Do not idolize me. This is just information. Humanity had this ability a long time ago, but when you're dying and reproducing on a constant basis at a deficit, there's no way you can expand your mind. You have to go through, which I think we had to go through, many centuries of trials and tribulations and so much stress to finally say, okay, I want to live when you are that close to dying. It may take someone who is that been close to dying, on a decade basis. Like, I've been close to death. And I would say like I actually, experienced a near death experience, but I'm sure I could have died many times during my years because of the choices that I made. So, take that to the macro level, not so much the individual level, and humanity has been close to dying for many, many centuries. At some point, something's got to give and someone's got to speak a different way. And maybe that's what happened back in the first century when the Pope, when the Pope became the Pope, not a Roman emperor, after they martyrized Jesus, then you have the 12 disciples who then passed on and wrote the words of Jesus at the time. And that's what became a holy book. And then, yes, the popes then wanted to, or the Roman emperors wanted to bridge the gap. And so instead of having so much division, they said, okay, we'll take on that same thing, so now it's the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So that is what then created the Pope to be, Father, Son, Holy, to be the ones that, I don't say like are the mouthpiece of God, but they are governing how the religion is being implemented into a working society, because they do business things every day. They're part of corporations. They have influence in the hospitals. They have influence in business. It's like, the Vatican and the Pope and all of the cardinals and all the different, underlings, they all are part of like a corporation. They deal with business, money. I mean, come on. And so that's no different than, our Congress. That's no different than our appointed presidents who, yes, were given a choice between two factions that really work the same. And then the vice president is chosen. She's not even voted in. And then, and you have Congress that actually is the one that chooses who is going to be put before you, who you choose between. Oh, Biden, oh, Trump. And then they're idolatry. They're idolized. Okay. And then they become like, some kind of figurehead, a representation of an idea, of a belief system, of a culture. And then you have the warring factions. So the Freemasons are really just a combination of Jews and Christians, because really the Knights Templar were just the self-appointed guardians of the Christians who were on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land against the Muslims at the time, who were, trying to take over. Okay. And that's during the Crusades. Okay. So in reality, we think about it, the Freemasons, they came from Christianity, which came from Judaism. So they all came from the same root historical background. Judaism, Christianity, and Muslim is part of the Semitic religion. I mean, when you think about it, all of them all kind of work together, and they branched off based upon biochemical differences, different people's interpretations, and then, then you have the different regions and who knows, people's biochemical experiences. And so then you have that world. Then you have the Asian world that has then Confucius and Shintoism and polytheism versus monotheism, right? One God versus many gods. And so it's all kind of, in the same Pandora's box of like just chaos. And so the New World Order is now bringing order from chaos when you think about it. Because, I'm going to be oversimplifying my book, but still I'm going to show you my thought process of where, because I had a thought, I wrote down a thought process like 6 months ago regarding the New World Order when I came from the conspiracy world. So I'm going to have my conspiracy mind start questioning what's going on. And then right now I just broke it down to the most simplistic, like that's my conclusion out of all of this, like trying to toss this around. So the Freemasons are really just a combination of Jews and Christians protecting their pilgrimage of beliefs in the Semitic world. Catholic Church supports the same directive with appointed humans to govern the belief systems in a working society. And the Catholic Church goes into every community. You have people that are proselytized. Catholic missionaries that go into, like, we have the Catholic missions in California. The missions in California were all from the Catholics. They converted the Indians and the Spanish, and they converted the Mexicans and all that. And so the Catholic religion has become the most predominant religion in, like, Latin America and so many different other cultures. And it stems from, Jesus as who they thought is the Father or the Son or the Holy Spirit or whatever. And then you have the Christians who don't believe any human should represent Jesus. So that's the Christianity world. And so, and so now what I think is going on with Bill Gates and the God gene is that they're now trying to promote a virus that will take away those that are that imbalanced, that have more of looking for a hero, and eradicate those, and then yes, put everyone on a level playing field without idolatry, without having one person. I mean, cancer is when you have so much growth in one area that's malnourished. So everything is connected. No one person should be more than the other, but here's the thing, you still have to have a heart and a lung. You still have vital organs to keep everything going. And the vital organs, have more importance than, let's say, just a finger. If you lose a finger, you can still live. If you lose your heart, you're dead. So if you lose someone like Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos, who's already stepping down, if you lose big, huge titans of industry, you will lose then the organization of your society. So you have to understand that there has to be some kind of acknowledgement that you need the heart, you need a vital organ, you need someone who is so rich that can be able to keep the order in your society. But we don't need to have 50 zillion factions out there, to choose from. Humans are no different from the 1st century to the 21st century. The only difference is modern conveniences. That's the only difference. And the fact that they have imbalances, they create antibodies, and then someone figured out in biotech how to go and manipulate your antibodies and antigen. That's the only difference, is that we have come further in biotechnology. That yes, relative to how long you think you were going to live, they prolong your life, biotech. But when in reality, when you have actually an indefinite amount of time, the perception of prolonging your life through biotechnology, is easy to sell when people have been dying before age 100. So if you can buy yourself 20 years when you actually have the potential of like 500 or 600 years, that doesn't seem like you're actually getting the benefit. But hey, it's the perception. It's what makes money. So this is going to be interesting, but I'm trying to put it all together, and you're watching me do it. You're actively watching me formulate my thesis around this, as well as the supporting information. All right, bye.